In today's class, we will be learning the 3 more different types of asexual reproduction. Addition to that, we will be also learning some more concept which belongs to this chapter. So, next one, we will be learning about fragmentation. Next one, which is called as sporulation, and different types of spores we will be learning. And the next one, which is called as vegetative propagation. So, here, along with the vegetative propagation, we will be also learning about vegetative propagules and the different types of vegetative propagules. The next one is coming artificial vegetative propagation. So, up to this artificial vegetative propagation, the asexual reproduction or apomixis, this concept gets completed. See, after that we will be learning about sexual reproduction. Now, after sexual reproduction, the one more important concept under same sexual reproduction, which is called as phases of life cycles in sexual reproduction, also we will be learning in today's class. So children, in this class we will be learning, say, all the 6 different types of concepts. So there's 2 important special concepts which is called as sexual reproduction and the phases of life cycle in sexual reproduction. There again we will be learning the 3 different types of life cycle, that 2 phases of life cycle in sexual reproduction. So come, let us learn about fragmentation. So we will be learning the definition of fragmentation and in which organism the fragmentation can be seen. See, the fragmentation can be defined as, it is a type of asexual reproduction in which the parental body breaks into 2 or more pieces and these pieces are called as fragments. When the parental body breaks up into 2 or more pieces called fragments, later on each fragment can develops into a new individual or a new organism. So that is why this process we call it as fragmentation process, which comes under asexual reproduction. So already perhaps it might be going in your mind, so in which are all the organism does the fragmentation occurs? See, it's coming, the first one, it is commonly found in sponges. So about sponges already you have studied in the previous classes. So sponges comes under phylum Poriferans. And the second one, which is also found in echinoderms, it is phylum Echinodermata, starfish. Perhaps you might have heard, if the starfish cuts one arm, again the arm regenerates. That is called as fragmentation. So next one, it is also found in a green alga called Spirogyra. Spirogyra is a green alga. If this Spirogyra is break down into 2 or more pieces, each pieces can develop into a new Spirogyra. So there is no fusion of gametes occurs. So a single parental body divides or breaks into number of pieces and each pieces can develops into a new organism. And one more example which is called as fungi, that too fungi Rhizopus, because Rhizopus is commonly called as bread mold. Even in the bread mold we can see the fragmentation process. Now coming one more example which is called as bryophyte. Under bryophyte, best example Rixia. In Rixia also the fragmentation can be seen, because all these examples you are very familiar with the last year syllabus, 11th ka syllabus. Okay, next one, pteridophytes. Under pteridophytes, the best example for fragmentation which is called as Selaginella. Selaginella is one of the best example under fragmentation process. Now children, under fragmentation we have studied the definition of fragmentation and also we have studied the different examples under fragmentation where a parental body breaks up and it can develop into number of fragments. Each fragment can develop into a new individual or a organism. That is called as fragmentation. That is the exact definition of fragmentation. So let us move on to the 4th different type of asexual reproduction, which is called as sporulation. It is one more important. See, so what do you mean by sporulation? Here in this process what happens, it is also a type of asexual reproduction in which unicellular small units called spores are produced from the parental organism. That is nothing but the parental organism produces unicellular units called spores. Later on, these unicellular units called spores, they develop into a new individuals. Each and every spore will develops into a new individual or a new organism. That is the exact definition of sporulation. Now again under sporulation, we have two different types. The first one is called as zoospores. Please concentrate, very important concept so far as your theory and as well as competitive examination. The best example is Chlamydomonas. See, that is the Chlamydomonas. Chlamydomonas, it is also a green alga. See, this is the parental organism. These are the zoospores. So that we will be learning exactly now. See, here what happens, a zoospore is a motile spore. Motile means it can move from one place to another place and contains flagella for their movement. Because when we say motile, it has to move. Whenever it is moving, some organs are very much responsible for their movement. So here flagella are held responsible for the movement. That is why a zoospore is a motile spore. It can move with the help of certain units called or locomotory structures called in Chlamydomonas. So the zoospores contain flagella. The flagella are biflagellate. Bi means two. Look at this. You can see the two flagella over each zoospore. That is why it is said to be biflagellate. Bi means two. And these biflagellated protoplasmic structures, they are usually produced from the parental body. This parental body is called as zoosporangium. Zoosporangium is the parental body. Inside the parental body, the unicellular units called zoospores, they are produced. These zoospores consists of biflagella. That means two flagella will be present. As the volume of the parental cell increases, the zoosporangium ruptures and the young ones, that is called the spores, will come out of the parental body. Later on, each spore will develop into a new organism. See the beauty over there. See, parental body where the spores are produced. Once the parental body ruptures, the zoospores come out and each zoospore can develop into a new Chlamydomonas or a new organism. That is what exactly you must learn under zoospores. Coming to the next one, aplanospores. This is the second type of sporulation, second type of spores which are formed. And moreover, these are non-motile spores. Non-motile means they cannot move from one place to another place, as they do not contain any kind of locomotory structures. Under aplanospores, it is further divided into two types. That is called aplanospores of two types. The first one is called sporangiospores, very important, and the second one is called as conidia, or it is also called as conidiospore. Two types of aplanospores, sporangiospores, conidia or conidiospore. Please keep remember two types of spores, zoospores, aplanospores. Under aplanospores, again two types. First one is called as sporangiospores and the second one is called as conidia, or they are also called as conidiospores. Now first let us take up the sporangiospores. In which organism the sporangiospores are produced as asexual reproductive structures. The best example is again Rhizopus. Rhizopus is commonly called as bread mold. So here these are the endospores. See, sporangiospores are the endospores because they are produced inside the body of the Rhizopus. And they are non-motile spores. They cannot move from one place to another place, and they are usually produced in Rhizopus, which is also called as bread mold. Please make a note of that. Endospores, sporangiospores are endospores which are produced inside the body of the Rhizopus. Best example for sporangiospores, that is the Rhizopus. Very important so far as your theory and as well as competitive exam. Now coming to the next one, which is called as conidia or conidiospore. See, conidia or conidiospore, which is commonly seen in one more fungus, which is called as Penicillium notatum. Penicillium notatum, perhaps you might have studied in the first PUC itself, where under kingdom Mycota. Under kingdom Mycota, there is one more classification comes, which is called as Ascomycetes. because there are 4 important classification you might have studied in PU1 under kingdom Mycota. So Phycomycetes, Ascomycetes, Basidiomycetes, Deuteromycetes. Under that, the second classification called Ascomycetes, under Ascomycetes this Penicillium notatum comes. And also you might have studied from this Penicillium notatum a chemical called penicillin is also extracted, and that was discovered by a scientist called Alexander Fleming. All this you will be learning in the coming classes. So the Penicillium notatum, this is the Penicillium notatum. So here what happens, these are also non-motile asexual spores, just like the previous spores, sporangiospores, but they are produced exogenously. Exogenously means outside the body of an organism they produced. Even though they are produced outside the body, they have in a special hyphae called conidiophores. See, don't get confused with conidiophores and conidiospores. Conidiospores are non-motile asexual spores and they are produced exogenously. See, outside the body of the organism in a special hyphae called conidiophores. Please look at these branches. These branches are called as conidiophores. All these conidiophores are fixed to one more structure that is called sterigma or sterigmata. Either you can pronounce it as sterigma or sterigmata. Both are correct. Then conidiophores in several fungi, and usually these conidiophores in the Penicillium notatum, they are branched. Look at that picture. It shows branched structure and bare at their tips. These are the branches. At the tip of the branches you could see the chain of unicellular spores. They are called as conidia. When these conidia or conidiospore detaches from these branches, each conidia can later on develops into a new organism or a new individual or a new Penicillium notatum. So children, for this we have studied the 2 different types of spores, that too under applanospores, which is called as sporangiospores and conidiospores. And there is one more important point you must learn under conidiospore. See, on release the conidia, when these conidia are released, and each conidia they germinate and they produce mycelium. What do you mean by a mycelium? See, already you have studied about hyphae. Hyphae is nothing but it is a long, thin, slender like structure which is present in the body of the kingdom fungi is called as hyphae. When several hyphae are interconnected together and form one more structure called mycelium. That is the exact definition of mycelium. Here what happens, when the conidia are released, they germinate. They start germinating. After germination, they start producing mycelium. That means they start producing the number of hyphae. Again, from each hyphae, the conidia are produced. Again, the detaches and each conidia can develop into a new organism. That is exactly we seen in the Penicillium notatum. So children, for this we have completed the 4th different types of asexual reproduction called sporulation. So which is the next one? The next one is called vegetative propagation. It is the last and 5th type of asexual reproduction. Here we will be learning the definition of vegetative propagation, the definition of vegetative propagules, and also different types of vegetative propagules with their characteristic features along with the examples. Now let us learn what exactly the vegetative propagation defines. How exactly we can define? Actually, it is a type of asexual reproduction in which the vegetative part of the plant body, not reproductive part, only the vegetative part of the plant body that gets detached from the parental body. Say, imagine this is a plant body, this is the vegetative part. This vegetative part detaches from the parental body. Detachment of the vegetative part, it can develop into a new individual. See here, without the fusion of gametes, without the formation of gametes, immediately under asexual reproduction a new organism develops. Or it can also be defined in this way. See, the second definition, it says that it is a type of asexual reproduction in which any part of the plant body that develops into a new plant. That is also called as vegetative propagation. Next, we will be learning the definition of vegetative propagules. What do you mean by vegetative propagule? Here, whatever the parts of the plant which develop into a new individual or a new plant, such parts are called as vegetative propagules. Whether it may be leaf, or it may be runner, or it may be rhizome, where it may be stolon, whatever it is. Next, we will be learning in a series. The first example under vegetative propagules, see, runner is the best example, rhizome is the best example, sucker is the best example, tuber is the best example, offset, bulb, stolon, chain of way we can keep on giving the examples. But so far as your theory and competitive, please do learn these are the examples which comes under vegetative propagules. See, once we learnt about the vegetative propagules and the examples for the vegetative propagules, it's very important to learn what is the nature of these vegetative propagules, what is the characteristic features of the vegetative propagules, and which are all the examples which comes under each vegetative propagules. Now let us learn one by one in detail. Now it's coming here. The first one, let us learn the mechanism of the vegetative propagules. See, first one, runner. Runner is a vegetative propagule. See, what is the characteristic feature of that? See, runner, here the new plants arise at the nodes of subaerial stem, not aerial stem, subaerial stem. The best example we can give it here. So the first one is called as lawn grass. See, that is the first one, lawn grass, and the second one is called as oxalis. Lawn grass and oxalis, they are the best examples for runner. In runner, here from the nodes of the new plants, the subaerial stem, particularly a new plant arises. Best example, see, this is one grass, this is one grass. See, this is called as node. It is the region where the leaf and roots are formed. The distance between these two nodes is called internode. The internode is called as runner. So, for as your competitive and theory part, you must learn runner, a vegetative propagule, and you must learn the example for each vegetative propagule. That is most important. Now, the next second one, which is called as rhizome. Rhizome means here in rhizome, the new plants arise at nodes of underground stem. Previous slide, subaerial stem, but here the new plants will arise at the nodes of underground stem. Best example, again it comes very important, ginger, turmeric, banana. See, in ginger you could see the nodal region. Bud will arise, adventitious roots arise. From this nodal region, one more new plant arises. That is the best example for rhizome. So keep remember, under rhizome, which is a vegetative propagule, best example ginger, turmeric and banana. Next example for vegetative propagule, which is called as sucker. See, sucker means here the new plants arise from the underground part of the stem. Which are the best example? There are two best example. One is called as chrysanthemum. Look at the first one, chrysanthemum, and the second one is called as mint plant. Already you are very familiar with mint plant, pudina plant. See, in this chrysanthemum, what happens? You could see the main branch, this one. Okay, now, so here a new plantlet arises obliquely, like this, obliquely, and it comes over the soil surface. Once this plant body detaches, a new plant body grows. Where exactly it detaches? No, that is called as sucker. Clear? That is called as sucker. So next mechanism we will be learning about tuber. Here tuber, in tuber the new plants arise from the axillary buds on tubers. Best example, potato. So look at there. See here the tips of the branches of the underground stem is enlarged. So there axillary buds, look at the axillary buds, see this is the eye, over the eye bud develops, the eye buds are axillary buds, from that eye bud a new organism or a new plant body develops. So keep remember, under tuber, best example potato. Tuber is a type of vegetative propagule, example for tuber is potato. So we have studied about runner, and the second one sucker, rhizome and tuber. The next important one which is called as bulb. See bulb, here what happens, the new bulb arises from the axillary bud on the short underground stem. Best example onion. See look at there, these are the buds, axillary buds, from there the new organism or a new axillary bud or a new organism or individual develops. So you must keep remember, bulb is a best example for vegetative propagule. Under vegetative propagule bulb, example onion. Next one which is called as offset. Under offset there are two different examples are there. In the offset the new plants arise from a short thick horizontal branch at its end. Best example water hyacinth, which is also called as eichhornia, and the second one is called as pistia. Pistia, it is the scientific name, common name is called as water cabbage. Water cabbage or pistia, one and the same. See, based on these two examples, please keep remember about water hyacinth or eichhornia, because we will be learning the characteristic features of this eichhornia or water hyacinth, very important so far as your theory and as well as competitive exam. Next one, leaves. Under leaves, here the notched margin of the leaves, they bear adventitious buds, and each adventitious bud later on develops into a new plant body. Best example bryophyllum. This is the bryophyllum. Adventitious roots are formed on the leaf margin. Whenever they fall on the ground, each adventitious bud they can develop into a new plant body. Second example, calonge. That is the calonge. These are the leaf margins of the calonge. You could see the adventitious buds are formed, and each adventitious buds can later on develop into a new individual. Third one, crassula. Here also from the leaf margin adventitious buds arises. Each adventitious bud can develop into a new plant body. So next, one more vegetative propagule which is called as bulbil. Here under bulbil what happens? The new plant arises from the flower buds of the inflorescence on the aerial stem. Please keep remember, under bulbil, from the flower buds or the floral bud of the entire inflorescence on the aerial stem, the new plant will arises. Sir, which are all the examples for bulbil? The best one which is called as agave. Agave, pineapple and diascorea. These are the three best examples. See, this is agave, pineapple and diascorea. So these are the best examples for bulbil. Last one which is called as stolon. For the stolon, best example is strawberry. See, this is the main plant body. A branch obliquely grows. From this obliquely growing branch, one more new plant arises. Say daughter plant arises, and this part we call it as stolon. Again that stolon can develop into a new plant body. So this is about the vegetative propagules, their characteristics and examples. So far as we have completed up with vegetative propagules definition, types of vegetative propagules and examples. And the next coming to the artificial vegetative propagation. See, already I have told, before we are learning the artificial vegetative propagation, we must learn the characteristic features of eichhornia, because previous slide itself I have told, while we are learning about the offset, eichhornia or water hyacinth, we will be learning the important characteristic features of eichhornia. Perhaps it might be asked for theory for 2 marks. See, the first important characteristic feature, it is an aquatic weed. Weed is nothing but unwanted plant. And invasive weed. Invasive means it does not belongs to our country. So it has been imported from other country, and which multiplies very rapidly, by using vegetative propagation. That is the first important characteristic features. Second one, it drains out the oxygen from stagnant water. As a result of this, which leads to the death of aquatic animals, because whenever there is lack of oxygen, obviously the aquatic plants and aquatic animals will die. So that is the second characteristic feature of Eichhornia. And the third one, it multiplies within a short period of time. Within a short period, it multiplies very rapidly. How can it multiplies? Again by vegetative propagation, and spreads in the stagnant water. You could never see that pond. The pond is completely covered with Eichhornia because it multiplies within a short period of time by using vegetative propagation. Because of this reason, it is very difficult to get rid of from that place. And it is very difficult to get rid of with this weed from that place. And hence it is called as terror of Bengal. So put double inverted comma and highlight that word, terror of Bengal. Which plant species is commonly called as terror of Bengal? Then please do write it as Eichhornia or water hyacinth. Next one, it is an alien species. Aliens means foreign species. It is not a native species. It is a foreign species. It has been brought to India for its beautiful flowers, flower modification. Look at that beautiful flower modification, and also leaves. So these are some of the important characteristic features of Eichhornia. Please do learn the most important question, particularly terror of Bengal. Highlight that. Name the plant species which is commonly called as terror of Bengal. At that time, please write it as Eichhornia or water hyacinth. So next, already I have told, we will be learning about artificial vegetative propagation. See, what do you mean by an artificial vegetative propagation? See, naturally happening, just in the previous slide we have studied. So vegetative part of the plant body that can develop into a new plant, that is called as naturally it happens in some plants. But under artificial vegetative propagation, we have some types. Under that, the first one is called as layering. In layering, what happens? In this method, the root formation is induced in the stem by keeping the stem in soil. See, the root has to be developed. As a result of this, the stem part of that particular plant is kept inside the soil so that the root formation can occur. Again, under layering, it is of two types. First one is called as mound layering. Second one is called as air layering. See, the mound layering, which is commonly done, which is commonly used in jasmine plant. See, look at that. So this is how the mound layering is done in jasmine plant. And the second type of layering, which is called as air layering. See, in the air layering, what happens? It is commonly seen in orange plant. Orange plant is the best example for air layering. Please keep remember, layering is the first type of artificial vegetative propagation where the root formation is done by keeping the stem inside the soil. There are two types of layering. First one, mound layering, which is commonly done in jasmine plant. Second one, air layering, which is commonly done in orange plant. Coming to the second one, which is called as grafting. Please do concentrate, very important. See, that is the exact picture that is showing how exactly the grafting is done. See, in grafting, what happens? Two plants are taken, these two plants are joined together and a new plant will be produced. That is called as grafting. So which part will be taken? The plant in which the root system is retained. There is a plant, in this plant the root system is retained and shoot system is removed. The root system will be kept as it is, but the shoot system will be removed. That part we call it as stalk. Look at this. Here what happens? The root system is retained, but the shoot system is removed. That part we call it as stalk. And similarly, in second plant, the shoot system is retained, but the root system is removed. This part we call it as scion. And this scion is fixed into the stalk to produce one more new plant. And this grafting is commonly done in mango plant. Please make a note of that. Grafting is commonly done in mango plant. Keep remember the examples, which is called as cuttings. This is common method we does, at home also we does, cutting method. See here what happens, it is a part of the plant body such as it may be root, it may be stem, it may be leaf, which is used for vegetative propagation. For example, rose plant. In rose plant what did we does? Cutting methods. We cut the stem of the rose plant obliquely. It is a stem of the rose plant, we cut it obliquely like this, obliquely we cut, and if we put the cut part of the stem into the soil, again it grows into a new plant. So that is why in some plants the root, stem and leaf, it's used for vegetative propagation, and in plants like rose, sugarcane and tapioca and drumstick, etc., the stem is generally used for propagation. Please keep remember, just now I told rose, sugarcane, tapioca and drumstick. In these plants generally the stem is used for vegetative propagation. See, look at that, stem cutting in rose, this is stem cutting in sugarcane. Clear? Best examples you please keep remember, very important. So in plants like lemon, citron and tamarind, etc., the root is used as a cutting. See, please know the differences. So stem is generally used for propagation, vegetative propagation in which plant? Rose, sugarcane, tapioca, drumstick. But the root is used as a cutting method in lemon, citron and tamarind. Please learn the examples, very important, very important. So in the artificial vegetative propagation, 3 types we have studied. First one is called as layering, under layering 2 types, mound layering, air layering. Second one is called as grafting. The third one is called as cutting. These are the 3 different types of artificial vegetative propagation. So children, for this we have completed the 5 different types of asexual reproduction, right from budding to artificial vegetative propagation. Next we will be learning one more important concept, which is called as sexual reproduction. As you all know that children, sexual reproduction, it is also a type of reproduction in which the offsprings or the young ones are formed by the fusion of male and female gametes. When the male gamete fuses with the female gametes, it leads to zygote. Zygote undergoes cleavage, which produces cells, tissues, organ system and a new organism. That is called as sexual reproduction. See, it is also called biparental because 2 parents are involved. Both male and female parents are involved, and the offsprings are morphologically and genetically different from their parents, but similar to their parents. It can be seen in asexual reproduction, but in sexual reproduction the offsprings are totally different from their parents. How? Both morphologically and as well as genetically they are different. Please keep remember that one. If looks similar, then we call it as clones. Already we have studied in asexual reproduction. And it is also called amphimixis or syngamy, syngamy, syngamy. And in sexual reproduction, the organisms exhibit meiosis. Once they exhibit meiosis, then definitely they produce gametes. Gametes are produced only with the help of a type of cell division called meiosis. It is also called reductional cell division. Since the meiosis occurs, gametes are produced, the offsprings exhibit variations, means changes, and also led to evolution. Evolution means change from one condition to another condition. See, since the meiosis occurs in all sexually reproducing organism and produce gametes, and hence the offsprings exhibit variations, the variations leads to evolution. That is very important. So after this we will be learning the phases of life cycle in sexual reproduction. Very important. You come across with this definition already. The organisms differ morphologically, anatomically, physiologically, but all sexually reproducing organisms, they have a common pattern of sexual reproduction. And these phases of life cycle of sexual reproduction is broadly classified or differentiated into 3 types. The first one is called as juvenile phase, that means pre-reproductive phase. Second one is called as maturity phase, which is also called as reproductive phase. The third one is called as senescence phase, which is also called as post-reproductive. That means in these stages we will be learning what are all the changes occurs in the organisms before maturity, what are all the changes occurs in the organisms during maturity or at the time of maturity, what are all the changes occurs in the organisms after maturity or after reproduction. They are together called juvenile, maturity or reproductive, senescence or post-reproductive phases. Now let us learn one by one in detail. The first one is called as juvenile or also called pre-reproductive phase. See, in juvenile phase it can be defined as it is the period of only the physical growth in the life of an organism before they can reproduce sexually. That is called as juvenile phase. Now let us learn how can we represent the juvenile phase in plants. See, in animals this phase is represented by growth and development. Only growth and development takes place in animals. But in case of plants, this phase exhibits only vegetative growth. Vegetative growth means only the roots keeps on growing, stem keep on growing, branches will form, number of leaves increases, weight of the plant body increases, height of the plant body increases, but the plant never produce flowers. Phase or that part we call it as vegetative growth. But in human beings, the juvenile phase or pre-reproductive phase lasts up to 12 to 14 years of age, because after that, so maturity or sexual maturity or puberty starts. So I hope you got this concept, very important concept. The next one, which is called as reproductive or maturity phase. How can we define the reproductive phase? It is the period where the organisms can actively reproduce their young ones after attaining maturity. That phase we call it as reproductive phase. See, in the reproductive phase, the plants are represented by the production of flowers. When the plants start producing the flowers, then it is called the plant attains the reproductive or maturity phase. When it comes to animals, there will be a maturation of gonads. Maturation of gonads means the sex organs start maturing. When it comes to human beings, particularly in mammals, particularly in female mammals, it is represented by the appearance of reproductive cycles, particularly in females. So in detail we will be learning about the reproductive cycles. In animals, maturation of gonads; in plants, production of flowers; in mammals, this phase is represented by reproductive cycles in females. Now let us learn in plants how does the reproductive or maturity phase is represented. First one, the plants which produce flowers. There are some plants which produce flowers once in their life cycle. That means once in their lifetime they produce flowers only once. Such flowers or such plants are called monocarpic plants or monocarpic flowers. That is the best example. They produce flowers only once in their lifetime. And there are certain plants which produce flowers for more number of times. Not only one time, for more number of times in their lifespan. Such plants or flowers are called polycarpic flowers and polycarpic plants. Please make a note of the differences between monocarpic and polycarpic flowers. Very important, will be asked for theory part. Now please do concentrate upon monocarpic plants. The monocarpic plants again consists of three types: annual, biennials, perennials. Annual means 1 year, biennials means 2 years, perennials means more number of years. That is the best example. See, next one, in annuals, both vegetative and reproductive growth takes place within 1 year. In 1 year, both vegetative growth and reproductive growth completes. Such plants are called as annuals. When it comes to biennials, in biennials 2 years, bi means 2. In biennials, the vegetative growth takes place in first year. Later on, in the second year, the reproductive growth takes place. That is why they are called as biennials. Biennials means vegetative growth and reproductive growth, which completes within 2 years. In first half of the year, vegetative growth takes place. In the second half of the year, the reproductive phase or growth takes place. That is the best example. Coming to the third one, perennials. In perennials, what happens? The plant's growth, particularly the reproductive growth, which takes place only after 20 to 30 years. Means what? Till 20 to 30 years, the plants keep on growing in its size, weight and diameter. Only it keeps on increase. But the plants never produce flowers even after 20 to 30 years. That is called as perennials. See, these are the perennials. And there are certain plants which produce unusual flowering. Unusual means not usually they produce flowers. Whenever they required, it produce flowers. They are called as unusual flowering. See, the best example, bamboo. Bamboo belongs to grass family, Poaceae or Graminae. In bamboo plant, they produce flowers only after 50 to 100 years. Imagine, till 50 to 100 years, the bamboo plants, it keep on growing in its length, size, weight and diameter, but they never produce flowers. After 50 to 100 years only, the bamboo plants start producing flowers. Please make a note of that, very important. Name a plant which produce flowers in 50 to 100 years once, then you write it as bamboo plant. Next, second example, which is called as Strobilanthes kuntiana. This is Strobilanthes kuntiana. In common name, we call it as Neelakuranji. And this plant produce flowers every 12 years once. See, 12 years once only Strobilanthes kuntiana produce flowers, and this plant is usually found in Karnataka, particularly in Western Ghats, Kerala, Munnar, Tekadi. So in these places, in Kerala, the Strobilanthes kuntiana produce flowers once in 12 years, and in Tamil Nadu. So these are the 3 states where Strobilanthes kuntiana can be found. And this plant, they have flowered, took place in the year 2018 October. So next flowering is expected in October 2030. Now we are in 2021. Still 9 years we have to wait that the Strobilanthes kuntiana plant should produce flowers. During 2030 October only we could see the flowers in the Strobilanthes kuntiana plant. Till that it never produced the flowers. Such plants are called as unusual plants because they produce unusual flowering. Next concept, children, when it comes to mammals, mammals consists of 2 different types of reproductive cycles. The first one is called as estrous cycle and the second one is called as menstrual cycle. See, estrous cycle is commonly found in non-primates. Which are all the non-primates? Cow, dog, cat, sheep, goat, horse, zebra, donkey, etc., etc. You can keep on giving the examples. And the second one is called as menstrual cycle. It is commonly found in primates. Primates such as our ancestors, monkeys, gorilla and human beings. Particularly in human beings, human females you must write. Now next we shall move on to the animals. In animals what happens? This reproductive activity, it is restricted to a specific period or it is restricted to a specific season. They are called as seasonal breeders. For example, if you take dog or a cat, they never produce their young ones all through the year. Only in one particular season, these non-primates will produce their young ones. That's why they are called as seasonal breeders. But there are certain animals which exhibit the reproductive activity throughout their reproductive phase. See, till that reproductive phase, they keep on producing their young ones or offsprings. They are called as continuous breeders. Best example, monkeys, human beings. All primates are the best example for continuous breeders. All non-primates are best example for seasonal breeders. Please make a note of this concept. Differentiate between seasonal breeders and continuous breeders. Please write the definition and examples. Definitely you deserve 2 marks. So here we have completed up with differences between seasonal breeders and as well as continuous breeders. Next concept, we will be moving up to the estrous cycle and menstrual cycle. Children, estrus cycle, what are all the changes that takes place? It is a series of cyclical changes that occur in ovaries, where the reproductive tract and hormones during the reproductive phase in the females of non-primate, that is female dog, female cat, female horse, there females of non-primates mammals, that is called as estrus cycle. See, best examples they have given: cow, sheep, dogs, cats, deers, horses, all are non-primates. Keep remember, in estrus cycle non-primates are involved, in menstrual cycle primates are involved. Non-primates, they are called seasonal breeders, primates are called continuous breeders. You got the differences there itself, clear? Next one, again under estrus cycle, during this estrus cycle the heat period develops, that the female receives the male for copulation. Copulation is nothing but sexual intercourse or mating or coitus, and this estrus lasts for 18 hours in case of cow, but a week in cat and dog. So in that period only the non-primates will reproduce their young ones. That's why they have been called as seasonal breeders. And at the end of the estrus cycle, the tissues lining the inner wall of the reproductive tract, it is sloughed off. However, there is no menstruation takes place, but the sloughed of the tissues are absorbed in the reproductive tract itself. That means there will be no bleeding in case of estrus cycle. That you must learn. So next one, the estrus is followed by a passive or rest period. So we call that passive or rest period is called anestrus, and this anestrus, it may vary from a few months to more than 1 year. Not more than 1 year, it may vary only from a few months to 1 year, not more than a year, not more than a year, clear? So that is the exact concept under estrus cycle. Next one children, menstrual cycle. See here, the menstrual cycle, what happens? A series of cyclical changes that occur in the ovaries of reproductive tract and hormones in the female primates from puberty to menopause. Puberty means it is the starting of the menstrual cycle, that is also called menarche. Menopause, it is the end of the puberty, that is nothing but the menstruation or menstrual cycle completely ceases out in case of females, that is called as menopause. See here in the female primates, right from the puberty to the menopause, the cyclical changes occurs in the ovaries, where the reproductive tract and hormones in the female primates from puberty to menopause, which is called as menstrual cycle. See, in this menstrual cycle what happens? The inner lining of the reproductive tract, which is called as endometrium, because uterus body is made up of 3 layers: outer epimetrium, middle myometrium and inner endometrium. Always the inner endometrium degenerates. That means inner lining of the endometrium of the reproductive tract is sloughed off. That means rupture. As a result of this, the blood vessels rupture and it passes out along with some blood. That is called as menstruation. But in estrus cycle, the menstruation does not take place because the reproductive tract does not sloughed off. Sometimes small amount will be sloughed off, but here all the blood vessels of the endometrium ruptures, which leads to menstruation. Next one, under menstrual cycle, the next you must learn which are all the examples. See, monkeys, apes, humans, such animals, they breed throughout the year. All through the year they keep on reproducing their young ones. That's why they have been called as continuous breeders, because the reproductive activity keeps on continuing throughout their reproductive phases. That is why they have been called as continuous breeders. So again and again I am stressing out, please learn about the differences between seasonal breeders versus continuous breeders, and also estrus cycle versus menstrual cycle, the most important question, and also monocarpic flowers and polycarpic flowers. Please do remember, most important questions may occur from these concepts. So next concept we will be learning, which is called as senescence phase. See, before senescence phase, see, please look at this sentence. Many other mammals also exhibit such cycles. Only during favorable seasons in their reproductive phase. They are called as seasonal breeders. Only certain mammals they exhibit, not all mammals. Clear? But under this concept, please do learn the differences between estrous cycle and menstrual cycle. Again and again, I am keep on repeating the statement, and seasonal breeders versus continuous breeders. Last one, senescence. Senescence means end, the end, last phase. Say that means climax. What happens during climax? For example, if you are watching a movie, you are very keen about the climax. What would be happening at the climax end? That is also senescence phase, which is also called as post-reproductive phase. That means what are all the changes occurs in the organism after the reproductive phase. That is called as senescence phase. That means the period when the reproductive phase ends. It completely ends. That is called as senescence phase. See, in this senescence phase, what are all the changes occurs in an organism? Here, in this phase, the reproductive cycle completely stops, which is called as menopause. After that, the female cannot reproduce their young ones. All the metabolic activities decreases. Metabolic activity, metabolism means the chemical changes which takes place in the body of an organism is called as metabolism. See, metabolic activities decreases. For example, at this age, I could able to have 4 chapatis during my breakfast. After 10 years, can I have the 4 chapatis after 10 years? No, because in my body, the metabolic activity is decreasing day by day because I am getting older and older. In the same way, in the organisms, particularly in mammals, the reproductive cycle stops, the metabolic activities decreases, and ultimately which leads to the death of the organism. So that phase we call it as senescence phase. So far, these children, we have completed with the sexual reproduction and the 3 different life cycles of the sexual reproduction, that is juvenile phase, reproductive or maturity phase, and senescence phase. In the next class, we will be learning some more concept under sexual reproduction, which is called as events of sexual reproduction, where we will be learning 3 different events of sexual reproduction: pre-fertilization events, fertilization events, and post-fertilization events. So till that, thank you.